Hey guys, Josh here, and you're watching Chimp Skills. And today I want to talk about the insanity that is politics. So today I was driving along for work and down a main road around the middle of the day, and I saw a guy in his mid 50s, waving a sign at cars, and it was the candidate for his local electorate. So we're about 8 weeks out from an election in Australia, so the craziness is about to start. Yeah, this dude was doing the job of a $10 post that you could put that sign on the ground. And it's going to sit there forever. He gave up his afternoon way out from an election when I don't know how much an effect it's going to have. I guess I'm talking about it. Waving a sign at cars, the same kind of thing a 15-year-old kid at Domino's who gets paid like $6.95 an hour or whatever to do. I thought, what the hell? This guy really must believe in his team. He's really behind it. So a couple of years ago, maybe more, like 3 or 4 years ago, I have a lot of free time when I'm driving around the car for work. So I really got into politics. I'd listen to Question Time, I'd listen to ABC News and, what were the latest bills that were trying to be passed and the opinions from each side. And I just found myself becoming more and more frustrated for how useless even paying attention to it was, because I couldn't really have an effect on the result. That's why I came to the conclusion that politics is a little bit like pro wrestling. It's great to go for your guy, but in the end, doesn't really have much of an effect on the outcome. That being, they talk a lot of shit, but there's not a great deal of action that follows through, and most of it is quite fake and pretentious. For example, election promises, when they come up, around the election time, X candidate will say, I will promise, and 12 to 18 months later, we're sitting there thinking, what have you really done? So I guess it's this bizarre merry-go-round that happens every 4 years that really makes me think, is there more that we can do in a space of 4 years, or is it that we look further on past like a 4-year election cycle and actually get some things done? So naturally, we bicker amongst ourselves like a couple of football fans, thinking, yes, I want my team to win, regardless of what their messages or what their policies are. You really start to see people get locked into, as long as their team wins, they don't really care. So there's all this bickering happening amongst each other, whilst the guys who are actually making all the decisions are not being held accountable. So when you think about election promises and how there is lack of follow through, and it's constantly things are being reworded and rephrased, what's the point? I'd probably rather vote for the guy who said, what happens when you were supposed to do this? And if he told me he was out doing blow with a bunch of strippers, I'd be completely comfortable with that. One, because he didn't reword my question, he answered it directly. And two, he was honest, which is more than I can say for 99% of politicians out there. Then I got thinking, how long's Parliament been around for? Like in Australia, we are lucky. You can speak freely on most ideas and you're not going to get in trouble for it. I could do this video in another country and I might get thrown in jail or even worse, executed for doing something like this. Australian Parliament was formed in 1901, and I think about all the technological advances that have happened since then. We've created flight, motor cars, we've been to space, we've created nuclear weapons, nuclear power, we've created the internet, we've launched satellites, create telecommunication networks. All these things have happened within that space and time, yet our parliament really hasn't changed at all. It hasn't evolved. Is it outdated? Has it run its course? Previously you'd elect someone to represent your local area because you couldn't get in touch with the people who were making the important decisions. We couldn't get to the power brokers. Where now, I don't know. Do we need all the members that we have in Parliament? Could we reduce it? Could we make it more open? Could we have more public elections on policy? If you have a look at what's happening in New South Wales, where they've scrapped or they've created these anti-protest laws in response to some of the protesting that was happening around the coal seam gas in the Northern Rivers region. If you were in that electorate, you probably don't agree with what your local member is pushing through with those anti-protest laws. is it possible to have someone who represents the people, who has nothing to do with the government? And if an issue comes up and there are enough people that get behind that issue and they feel that it's not right, perhaps then we can push and you can have just a public vote on that particular policy and override government. I think about, when it comes around election times, always talking about cuts, cuts from low-income earners, cuts from high-income earners, whether cutting superannuation or, creating more taxes. But at the end of the day, it's like, what areas aren't being targeted for cuts? Politicians' salaries, those go up. Their superannuations, they're not being cut. They get the same salary if they've stayed for X amount of years for the rest of their life. That's not being touched. Flying around, if you've been a Prime Minister, you get free airfare, you get your golden ticket. That's not being touched. Maybe if we had someone that represented the people and the politicians decided to give themselves an extra $50,000 a year while they're freezing, other areas like emergency services workers and other public services, that's all being frozen. Maybe if there was someone that represented us, they'd be, well, hold on. A lot of other areas are taking some hits. I don't think it's appropriate to give yourself sort of a 30% pay rise right at the moment. I don't know. It's food for thought, but I don't know what's going to happen this year around the election. I don't know who to vote for. Constantly when I speak to people about this exact issue, like who would you like to see in power, it's, I want to vote for that person because they're not as bad as that person. Which is pretty scary when you think about it. And yes, our system is better than a lot of other countries around the world, but that's not an excuse to not try and improve that system or make it more effective and more equitable. So look guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today. Share your thoughts. Be keen to hear it. Give it a like or a share. Until next time, peace.